Philadelphia Eagles made their final 3 picks of this draft in round 7, bringing the 2026 NFL draft to a close and adding some depth to a secondary that needs it. Welcome to the Birds Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk about those draft picks in a moment. However, I do want to start with some news. On night 1 of the NFL draft, as you'll recall, Makai Lemon was on the phone with the Pittsburgh Steelers while the Philadelphia Eagles traded with the Dallas Cowboys to select him at pick 20. The Steelers held pick 21. This resulted in it being difficult for the Philadelphia Eagles to get on the phone with Makai Lemon. Now, it turns out, according to former Eagle Jake Rosenberg, that this may have actually been a violation of NFL rules by the Pittsburgh Steelers. According to Rosenberg, teams that are not on the clock may have discussions with the representatives of one or more draft-eligible players that have not yet been selected, or even with the players themselves, talking about non-financial matters, but those communications may not interfere with any communications between the player and the team that is on the clock. So because the Steelers were on the phone with Makai Lemon, and this caused the Eagles to have some difficulty, this could have opened the Pittsburgh Steelers up to discipline. I reached out to some folks at the league, and a league spokesperson did confirm that the league reviews all aspects of the draft in the week following its conclusion. So this is something that I'm sure the league is going to take a look into, and certainly as more information comes out, we will certainly share that. But for now, anything about any potential disciplinary actions the league may take against the Steelers is all speculation, and we will let that process play out as it should. After all, the Eagles do have 3 new players in round 7 that we have yet to talk about, and all 3 of them address some needs. The Philadelphia Eagles had a need at safety. They certainly need some additional depth there after letting Reed Blankenship walk in free agency. The Philadelphia Eagles addressed that need in round 7 with 244 overall. The Eagles selected Cole Wisniewski, safety out of Texas Tech. Wisniewski was actually rather limited in his final season. He kind of maneuvered his way to Texas Tech through North Dakota State, and he was limited in the pass game in particular. 6 pass defenses and 0 interceptions. So he's definitely not a lock to make the roster, but he is very good at the line of scrimmage, according to NFL.com's Lance Zierlein. In the 2025 season with Texas Tech, had 78 combined tackles, 38 of them solo tackles, 6 of those were tackles for a loss, and he had 1 sack. So he does have some opportunity to create some plays, create some momentum, but it does seem like a lot of those would be at the line of scrimmage, with the pass game being an area of opportunity for him. That having been said, I am excited about the fact that there is now additional depth at safety, and that is definitely an area where the Eagles need some help. So we will certainly see how that pans out, certainly given the importance of the safety position in the Vic Fangio defense. He does have an opportunity to compete for maybe some depth positions, maybe a little bit farther down on the 53-man roster, maybe a practice squad position. We will certainly see what happens there. Now, the Eagles had 2 more picks to make in the 7th round, picks 251 and 252, the 2 picks that they got from trading back with the Los Angeles Rams. And the Philadelphia Eagles spent one of those picks on a player coming from a program that they are familiar with because it's the same program that produced Jordan Mailata. The Eagles went to the International Player Pathway Program and selected Uar Bernard, coming from Nigeria. Now, Uar Bernard is a really interesting player. You can probably guess that interesting and unique is the theme of this 2026 NFL draft. And that intrigue comes from the fact, at least for Bernard, that he has really scary athletics for never having played a lick of football in his life. Uar Bernard measured in at 6'4", 306 pounds, and he had a 39-inch vertical jump, a 10-foot 10-inch broad jump, and a 4.63 40-yard dash. So those are some crazy numbers for somebody who has never played a lick of American football. He also has a 6% body fat, so he looks like something that could be right out of a Marvel comic. And this is drawing comparisons between him and guys like DK Metcalf or even Myles Garrett. So, definitely some really interesting comparisons there. Not playing football at all going into this draft is certainly something that caused him to fall to the 7th round, but it's definitely not unique, and certainly not unique for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jordan Mailata, coming through the International Player Pathway program, had never played American football before being signed by the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is very much the same thing with Uar. He has never played American football prior to going through the International Pathway program, and he has now been drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. And he spoke about some interactions that he had with Jordan Mailata following his selection.
He came through the camp when we were at the 10-week in Fort Myers. The first day I met him, he told me that I should use my talents to bless my family. So I believe that what he told me, coming through the IPP, coming to the NFL as an IPP player, national player, he more like a role model to me with what he's doing now in the NFL.
Now, I do want to point out that having Bernard on the roster does carry with it roster considerations. Because he comes through the International Player Pathway program, the fact that he was selected by the Philadelphia Eagles in the draft, the Eagles are allowed to keep him on the roster as sort of the 91st player. So he does not count against the 90 players that the Eagles will be allowed to have in the offseason, in the preseason, up until roster cutdown day. Once roster cutdown day happens, if the Eagles keep him on the 53-man roster, he counts against the 53-man roster. If the Eagles waive him and he clears waivers, the Eagles will be allowed to re-sign him to the practice squad just like anybody else. But what the Eagles will be able to do is the Eagles will be able to utilize an exemption to allow them to carry him and not have him count against the 16 players that they're allowed to carry on the practice squad. So they'll be allowed to have him on the practice squad. And if they utilize that exemption, the Eagles will be able to elevate him 3 times from the practice squad if they so choose. But no other team will be allowed to claim him from the practice squad like they would anybody else on the practice squad. So just something to be mindful of there, that he does come with some roster benefits. But perhaps more importantly is the fact that the Eagles actually, when they were doing their trade backs, they actually traded back with the Rams, envisioning that they would pick Uar at this position, which I think is really interesting, something that Howie confirmed following the conclusion of round 7.
When you traded down, you got the extra picks. Was that with Uar in mind? Did you want to secure that player?
Yeah, we did. It was funny. It was when we were doing the trade with Minnesota yesterday, adding in that 7th this year was important. We tried to get in a couple of trades that we were discussing. We wanted to take the chance on the kid. Obviously, we've had great success with that program. We spent a lot of time with him. Coach Hurt went down there and spent the day with him, worked him out. Just for us, it was a passion project. Obviously, he got a lot of tools in his body. Understand it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time here, but it's pretty cool. And it's just, we spent a lot of time talking about unusual, and certainly unusual with that guy. So I think we found out his name. Our scouts, we focus on the IPP after the combine a little bit in that spot, and we have a dedicated scout to that. And they gave us the heads up on him, and then we watched the workout, and you saw the testing numbers. And then Coach Hurt went down there and worked him out. The workouts continued to come in. We continued to see him work out more and more. I think what's cool is we're also going to sign Uar from that program, from that IPP program. So we're going to bring both of them here, which is really cool, for them to be together. They worked out together. They were doing all their training together, and he's another guy who's got unique traits in his body. And so we signed both those guys.
And Nick also spoke about the opportunities that present themselves when a player who comes in who has never had any experience playing American football, the opportunities that present themselves in coaching a player like that.
Just that, I think that we had this experience with, obviously, the Eagles have had it with Jordan. I was able to be around Mo Alley Cox, who was coming from basketball. Just kind of a blank slate that you're able to teach things to, and really look forward to that, right? To teaching them the game, to teaching them the fundamentals of the game, to teaching them the situations that we go through, right? And the fundamentals are even more basic than to start things off. And so just that, that whole process of learning the game, learning what it takes to be on a football team, all the different things that come with it. So it's an exciting thing to be a part of. And, I know with the guys in this locker room and the people that we have here, that he's going to have a great experience as far as his football experience. So let's just looking to develop him and continue to get him better.
Now, Bernard did work out with the defensive tackles when he was at the HBCU showcase that the NFL organized. So that's definitely a strong consideration for him to play. But one of the advantages of having a player with no football experience going into this is that it's a really clean slate and you can teach him whatever position may be most beneficial to the team. We'll certainly see what happens there. Now, with the 252nd overall pick, the Eagles made their final selection of the 2026 NFL Draft. Keyshawn James-Newby, an edge rusher out of New Mexico, although he did have a couple of other colleges that he was at before he landed at New Mexico, Montana Tech and Idaho specifically. He did have 9 sacks and 15 tackles for a loss in 2025. He's definitely a little bit on the older side when it comes to NFL prospects. So definitely somebody to keep an eye on there. But I think he's probably going to be a depth player at that position and definitely would be fighting a little bit of an uphill battle to make it onto the 53-man roster. Given the fact that the Eagles added Jonathan Bernard, they still have Jalex Hunt, Nolan Smith. They added a couple players in free agency. The Philadelphia Eagles do have some good edge rushers there. It is up to James-Newby to fight for a spot on that roster. He would definitely be a depth player, though, if he does make it there. But definitely some interesting players for this Philadelphia Eagles secondary to round out the 2026 NFL Draft. So that brings the 2026 NFL Draft to a close, with the Eagles adding 8 new players to the roster, each of them addressing a particular need. And Howie did seem optimistic about the state of the team, but he knows that there is still work to do.
We don't play our first game till September at every position. We got to see what we have, and if we went into the draft and we filled every hole, we probably wouldn't have had a good draft, and it's yet to remains to be seen if we even had a good draft. We'll see. Here we got time to judge it, but understood that we couldn't get everything we wanted at any position. Very comfortable where we are as a football team right now, and understanding that there's more work to be done.
Now, I don't like to grade drafts in their immediate aftermath. We need to see how these players work out. But right now, I would say that the Philadelphia Eagles definitely have their work cut out for them in this offseason. They still have plenty of opportunity to make this team better. But let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your thoughts about this NFL Draft? What are your thoughts about these 3 players that were added in the final round of this draft? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage. And if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com, or you can join the YouTube channel. Totally up to you, no pressure there. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles.